Okay, thank you for inviting me here to give a demonstration on making one of the dishes that I learned making when I was working at Republic Cafe, but it evolved where as a teenager you start picking up things, and I started learning how to cook some of the dishes there. And one of the dishes that we're going to cook today and a demo is a sweet and sour chicken. Usually at the restaurants we use pork or spare rib, and the reason is because it's got better texture and it's very a good dish, very tasty. But we're using chicken breast today, and we're going to prepare the chicken and a lot of the ingredients. And first thing is you have to have your tools, and today I brought some of my favorite cutleries, and this is a meat cleaver that I actually bought through a demonstration from Martin Yan. Later on, my kids actually bought us some really nice cutting tools, and this is called Shun, and one of these costs about $100, and I brought a couple of these. And the one thing good about it is that once you sharpen them, they're very sharp. They become razor sharp. And we're going to start some prep work, and I'll probably start with just doing some of the vegetables, because if you get things on your hand like the chicken, you don't want to be touching other things. So let's start with just preparing the bell pepper. And most of this stuff, a lot of people do like to eat the bell pepper, and today we're making one of the dishes that I made or helped with at the Republic Cafe when I was younger. You cut this, and we're going to try to go pretty fast with this. And what you want to do is clean off all the seeds. And I may not be too good with that today, but we'll do our best. And cut this stem out. And I'll try to go pretty fast because we don't want to be here too long. But what you want to do in this first step is to cut these up into slices and cut it so, and then you could cut it into. One thing about preparing any kind of Chinese dish, there's always going to be variations of how it tastes, how it looks, the color, and ingredients. So usually you want to cut these in about like 1-inch cubes. And I'm going to get a little bowl here to put this in there so we have it here. And we may not even need so much, but it doesn't hurt. So we'll cut into little pieces like this. And what this does when you're making the dish that I'm making, sweet and sour chicken, it adds color, because this is the green color that you have in it. And here's the onion, and what you want to do is clean that off, take the head and tail out of that, and cut this in half, and maybe take the first layer off because it's usually dry. This kind of adds the white color. And what you want to do is cut these into slices so that when you throw it in there, it's going to look really nice. I'm trying to go pretty fast with this. Here's your onion. So that's what you got for your vegetables that you throw in there. And you're going to see what I'm going to use this for. This is something that my mom taught me to use. It's kind of a magic potion that's in there. This is a piece of ginger, and I'll show you how to use that later on. Another ingredient you add to it is you could use whatever you like, but I usually like to use chunks of pineapple because this adds the yellow coloring in it. You could also use Chinese fruits like lychee or lychee nuts, or you could use loquat, the yellow one. But it costs more, it's more expensive, so restaurants won't usually want to use that. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is prepare our chicken. And these are chicken breast meat, and I looked at the pricing, and meats have gone up, but my wife was able to shop and buy this at Nob Hills last night, and it was 99 cents a pound, but it was bone in, so I took the bone off it before coming here to save some prep work. And what you want to do is, with sweet and sour, you just cut them into about 1 inch to 1 1/4 inch cubes, depending on what you prefer. And if you cut it in smaller cubes, obviously it's going to cook or fry faster. But I usually like to maybe make it around 1 inch to 1 1/4, and you slice them in cubes. And when you cook other types of Chinese saute food, they do something different with the chicken. They actually try to make the meat more tender by slicing it differently in thin slices. But I'm going to cut these in cubes, and you're going to see it about 1 inch to maybe 1 1/4 inch cubes. When I was working at Republic Cafe, I started working there just doing just odds and ends like washing dishes, preparing the food for cooking the dishes. And I was only 13 at the time, but it evolved where as a teenager you start picking up things, and I started learning how to cook some of the dishes there. And we have 4 pounds of chicken breast meat here, and this in smaller portion is probably enough for at least 15 to maybe 20 people. What we want to do next is prepare the batter for the chicken. And what you want to do is you break open, I'm going to use 1 whole egg because it's probably not easy to use a half of egg, and I'll use this to mix it up. Salt in there for taste. And this thing is a little bit hard to mix, but it's not going to hurt. We'll mix it up and get it. It wouldn't matter. So next, you put it into the egg and mix it up. Okay, so if you didn't put enough salt in it, you could put a little bit more now. Next thing you want to do is make your batter. And what I usually do simply is just get some flour and just put it right into the chicken. And you can use a little more or a little less depending on what you want. And a lot of times we don't like to use too much flour because you don't want to be chewing on batter. But restaurants would love to just put more flour than meat because the meat's expensive. So you mix it and you have your chicken. So there's 2 things that we have to do, and we're going to fry the chicken. Yeah, we're done with the prep work. So the next thing, we're going to switch here to the 2 just cornstarch, and this is to make your sauce. And we're going to just make, since we have that, I'm going to use about this much. You want to add water, and you want to stir this until you get the starch to be liquefied and not, you don't want it in powder form because it's going to get clumpy when you make your sweet and sour sauce. And I'm going to show you some tricks that I've learned over the years. And let's just put a little bit of water because we're not going to make a lot of sauce. Is that you could use the syrup from the pineapple. So you could put that in there, and that's going to give you plenty of liquid. It may look a little cloudy, but we're going to add 2 more things. I'm going to add ketchup. And I like to use ketchup because it's natural. A lot of restaurants will not use this because it costs more, and they use just red and yellow food dyes. So these are a couple of tools that you use for making this. This is where you can stir it until you get this all mixed up. So it's already kind of look like it's thickened, and I haven't even added the starch. But we're going to add a little vinegar to start with, just to give it a little tangy taste. And this is what's going to thicken it. It's already kind of looking thick. I brought a bag of sugar, and you could use whatever you like, but it's probably better to make it sweeter. I think that's enough. And that's going to thicken because the sugar starts crystallizing and it gets thicker. So this is our sauce now. And then we're going to add a little bit of starch in it. And hopefully the heat's hot enough, but you can see the color coming and it's looking really nice. Now and when this cools down, it'll start thickening too. So you want it kind of liquidy. And that's quite a lot of sauce already. Okay, now I'm going to dump the pineapple in here. Okay, the next thing we want to do is fry our chicken. Earlier, we had this piece of ginger. So you can see the ginger bubbling. So it's telling you that the temperature of the oil's getting warm enough. So we can start frying it. And I'm going to use my hands because it's a lot easier to do this. But you got to be careful not to burn yourself. And that's done for that. And wipe my hand a little bit. Mix it a little bit so you get the oil everywhere. I actually could take this guy out. It should cook in maybe 6 to 8 minutes. Kind of do two things at one time. And once that gets warm, and you can start bubbling, I'm going to add the other ingredients in it. So we're going to dump this in here, and this makes a really nice, colorful sauce. And you can cook it a little bit, depending on how well you want to cook the bell pepper and onions. I'm going to add a little bit of vinegar gives it a little kick. Not too much. But the chicken's probably pretty cooked now, but you can cook it longer to get the moisture out of it and have a little bit more crispier chicken. But you're not going to get crispy chicken breast because if you cook it too long, it's going to be too dry to eat. So we're going to probably pretty much stop here because the chicken's all cooked. Maybe give it one more minute. And if you're not too sure, you could always take a piece out and eat it and see if it's cooked inside. So here, pick up the meat and just throw it right in the sauce. You want to let it sit for about maybe 5 minutes before you eat it, so the sweet and sour sauce gets mixed into the meat. And that's it.